We're in the midst of one of the greatest military operations in history. A targeted military operation to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival. Operation Rising Lion. This operation will continue for as many days as it takes to remove this threat. The nuclear threat and the ballistic missile threat to Israel.
On Friday, June 13, 2025, Israel launched a coordinated large-scale air war against Iran. During this military campaign, which targeted Iranian military commanders, nuclear sites, air defense systems, missile launchers, and nuclear scientists, Israeli fighter jets have bombed countless targets of various types across 5 Iranian provinces, including the capital city, Tehran. There, Israel carried out a series of decapitation strikes that eliminated numerous senior Iranian military commanders and nuclear scientists. In addition to targeting high-value military and scientific personnel, Israel also struck Iran's nuclear headquarters and, according to Israeli claims, laboratories involved in nuclear weapons development. Furthermore, a chemical materials research and development site and a centrifuge production facility outside the city were struck. The Israeli Air Force also carried out strikes on the largest uranium enrichment facility of Iran in the Natanz area. However, since the centrifuge halls at Natanz are located underground in Israel, unlike the United States, does not appear to possess the necessary capabilities to strike targets that deep, the strikes were not as effective as initially thought. So while it is definitely possible that the strikes significantly disrupted Iran's enrichment infrastructure and delayed its nuclear progress, there is still a chance that the deep underground caverns may have remained largely intact, while satellite images from Airbus Defense and Space, as well as several other providers, clearly show visible damage to above-ground sections. There is so far no conclusive evidence of a penetration reaching deep into the underground areas of the facility. This is also supported by the fact that Israel largely shifted its focus to targeting oil facilities, ballistic missile launchers, and air defense sites. As of now, it seems that Israel has even managed to overcome and eliminate Iran's layered air defense network, which appears to have resulted in the establishment of total Israeli air dominance over Iran in just a few days. This means that Israeli fighter jets can currently operate freely in Iranian airspace without having to fear any serious resistance. Another indicator of this is that the Israeli Ministry of Defense is currently releasing an increasing number of videos showing airstrikes carried out in broad daylight. Normally, fighter jets operate primarily at night, especially in contested airspace. The fact that Israel is now executing and openly showcasing daytime raids suggests a high level of confidence in its air force, who seems to be able to operate without significant threat from Iranian surface-to-air missiles. Regarding this, US President Donald Trump made a statement praising American-made military hardware, such as the F-35, in which he said, "We now have complete and total control of the skies over Iran. Iran had good sky trackers and other defensive equipment, and plenty of it, but it doesn't compare to American-made, conceived and manufactured stuff. Nobody does it better than the good old USA." When it came to demands directed at Iran, he simply posted, "Unconditional surrender." He based this on the fact that 2 months earlier he had given Iran a 60-day ultimatum to make a deal. Besides this, he posted, "Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon." At the moment, it even appears that the US might join Israel in the attacks, especially since they are the only ones with the capability to effectively neutralize Iran's deeply buried facilities. However, whether this will actually happen remains to be seen over the course of the day, or perhaps even in the coming days. The initial Israeli strike operation was supported by Mossad agents operating on Iranian soil, who assisted in targeting Iranian assets such as air defenses using drones. The drones were assembled directly inside Iran after Mossad agents established a secret drone launch site near Tehran in early 2025. Prior to that, they had smuggled quadcopter drones and precision-guided weapons into the country, which, as mentioned, were assembled on site. The Mossad agents used, among other things, specially modified vehicles to transport the drones and employed a modus operandi that closely resembled the recent Ukrainian attack on the Russian bomber fleet. This raises suspicions that the approach may have been developed in coordination between Israeli and Ukrainian intelligence agencies. That is, of course, only speculation at this point. The Israeli airstrikes also destroyed 2 Iranian F-14 Tomcats. However, satellite images suggest that these aircraft were not operational, as they had been sitting in the same position in the open air for at least a year. Between 1976 and 1979, Iran received 79 of these machines from the US and is currently the only country still operating this aircraft. However, due to the lack of spare parts, I highly doubt that their F-14 fleet is truly operational. An Israeli strike also targeted Iranian state TV, as shown by this footage from the ground and released by the Israeli Ministry of Defense. What's unique about this strike is that it was recorded during a live broadcast, but see for yourself. According to reports, the woman got away with the fright and was largely unharmed. Iran initially appeared to be completely caught off guard by the targeted and precise Israeli strikes, and it took some time before a proper response followed. This response came primarily in the form of ballistic missiles, which were launched in large numbers at targets across Israel. As a result, some highly dramatic footage emerged, but I have to be honest, compared to the highly effective Israeli campaign, the Iranian missiles, despite their large number, did not seem to have the same level of effectiveness as the Israeli strikes. While the number of missiles that managed to penetrate Israel's air defenses appears to have been higher than in previous attacks, the number of Israeli casualties reportedly remained very low, and the strikes had no real impact on Israel's military capabilities. I would even go so far as to say that the disruptive impact of the Iranian response on ongoing Israeli operations was close to zero. It was mainly the Israeli civilian population that was affected, as they had to frequently seek shelter during the attacks, which occurred in waves. While it is very difficult to provide precise casualty numbers on both sides, it has been reported that the Iranian strikes caused up to 24 deaths among Israeli civilians, while over 592 were wounded. Fatal losses on the Iranian side are said to exceed 450. Ironically, that roughly corresponds to the number of missiles Iran is said to have fired at Israel, reportedly also over 450. Statistically, that would mean one dead Iranian for every missile launched. However, I would like to once again emphasize that these numbers have not yet been independently verified. Most of the figures come from official or potentially biased sources, which, especially in the context of conflict, are often influenced by propaganda. Therefore, we should treat such claims with great caution and avoid accepting them as confirmed facts until independent verification is available. The same applies to the hit or interception rate of the missiles. While the interception rate appears to be high, there is also a large amount of video footage showing missile impacts. However, it's important to note that many of these strikes may have been recorded from multiple angles, meaning they could be showing the same incident from different perspectives. The reason why we primarily see footage of missile impacts in Israel appears to be that, in the aftermath of the strikes, Iran experienced widespread internet outages. These disruptions not only make it difficult to share videos and information from within the country, but also suggest that there may have been deliberate attempts to limit the external media visibility of the Israeli airstrikes, either through state-imposed network restrictions or the physical destruction of communication infrastructure. Iran's drone attacks on Israel also appear to have been largely ineffective. The Israeli military released a series of videos showing the highly successful interception of Iranian Shahed drones by Israeli attack helicopters. For this, the Israeli Apache helicopters followed the drones and used their 30mm cannons to shoot the drones down mid-air from close to medium range. Since this type of kamikaze drone is relatively slow, it makes sense to intercept it using helicopters or tube-based ground fire in order to relieve other air defense systems. This is also a very interesting clip showing a Jordanian fighter jet intercepting an Iranian drone within its own airspace. Since the range of Iran's ballistic missiles poses an immediate threat, and Israel has not been able to effectively strike Iran's nuclear facilities, one of the main focuses is the destruction of Iran's ballistic missiles and their launchers. This animation, created by the Israeli Ministry of Defense, shows the range of all Iranian missiles very well. The destruction of these capabilities also appears to have been a successful endeavor, as the volume of missiles launched from Iran seems to have significantly decreased over the past few days, likely due to the high destruction rate of missile launches caused by Israeli airstrikes. According to reports, Israel has already destroyed more than a third of all Iranian ballistic missile launchers, and the number is rising. Regarding this, the War Zone reported, the Israel Defense Forces reports that it has destroyed over 120 surface-to-surface missile launchers since the escalation began last Friday. According to the IDF, this figure represents roughly one-third of Iran's total arsenal of long-range ballistic missile launchers, specifically those capable of striking targets inside Israel. Notably, the IDF statement emphasizes the destruction of launch platforms rather than the missiles themselves, of which Iran still possesses significantly larger quantities. These launchers are often dispersed or concealed, with some reportedly housed in caves. It's currently unclear how many of these hidden systems were deployed before the fighting began, or whether Israel succeeded in sealing some launchers inside their caves by striking the entrances. For context, a 2022 assessment by US Central Command estimated Iran's long-range missile stockpile at over 3,000 units. This number likely grew further up until 2024, before Iran began expending several hundred missiles in strikes against Israel. As for the current conflict, estimates suggest that Iran began with between 750 and 1,000 ballistic missiles capable of reaching Israel. Of these, approximately 370 missiles have already been launched, meaning that Iran may have used up between one-third and one-half of its operational long-range arsenal. Despite these reported setbacks for Iran, targeting and destroying mobile missile launchers remains a major operational challenge for the IDF, especially given the vast distances Israeli aircraft must cover and the limited availability of aerial refueling assets. Moreover, Iran retains a substantial inventory of land attack cruise missiles and numerous types of attack drones, which continue to pose threats to Israeli and regional security. While it is undeniable that Israel is currently wiping the floor with Iran, and that Iran has so far offered far less resistance to the Israeli attacks than expected, I must nevertheless point out a certain bitter aftertaste. Although the initial phase of the offensive was primarily aimed at Iran's nuclear program, and specifically intended to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons, this campaign, along with the potential upcoming involvement of the United States, demonstrates one thing above all. The possession of nuclear weapons appears to significantly reduce the likelihood of sudden, targeted decapitation strikes on key decision makers. Just look at Russia or North Korea. The main reason they have not already shared the same fate as Iran is simply the fact that they already possess nuclear weapons. Still, however, the fact that Russia has basically left Iran to face its current struggle alone, despite indications that Israel may have assisted Ukraine in developing the plan for Operation Spiderweb, although this remains unconfirmed, also clearly reveals a certain weakness on Russia's side. That said, I won't go too much into that topic right now. Despite all of Israel's successes in severely weakening the Iranian regime and degrading its offensive military capabilities, the primary goal of the Israeli campaign was not fully achieved. The strikes most likely only delayed Iran's pursuit of the atomic bomb. While Israel claims that Iran has been set back by at least 2 years, there remains a significant risk. If no new deal is reached, and if Donald Trump ultimately decides against supporting Israel in the complete destruction of Iran's nuclear program, even though all current signs point to him seizing that opportunity should Iran refuse a deal, there is still the residual danger that Iran, now more than ever, will double down on its pursuit of nuclear weapons. But what are your thoughts on this? Let me know in the comments below. Also, please make sure to leave a like if you found this video informative. If you haven't already, you can also subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and enable all notifications to further support me. This really helps me out a lot and motivates me to keep up the work. It also greatly boosts the video in the YouTube algorithm. Thank you. And now, back to the video. This clip from Lebanon is truly surreal and shows an unbelievable scene, but see for yourself. Here we see what was reported to be an Israeli David Sling interceptor in action, launching missiles to intercept incoming Iranian ballistic missiles. One missile, however, made it through and struck right next to it. A very interesting sight was a series of exoatmospheric interceptions of Iranian missiles by Israeli air defense systems. Exoatmospheric refers to something that takes place outside the Earth's atmosphere, so what you see here is legit footage of a space battle. The incoming ballistic missiles were intercepted and destroyed in space before they could re-enter the Earth's atmosphere and strike their targets. This is an advanced form of missile defense used to prevent high-speed, long-range threats from hitting populated areas or military assets. Israel's Arrow 3 system, for example, is designed specifically for such high-altitude, exoatmospheric interceptions. However, even the most advanced missiles can sometimes malfunction, as was the case here when an Israeli air defense missile experienced a failure shortly after launch and fell back to the ground. These kinds of failures, while uncommon, are not unheard of in high-intensity operations. Modern air defense relies on split-second timing, precise sensor input, and flawless hardware coordination. When even one of those elements falters, the system can fail to perform as intended. In this case, the failed launch didn't cause any reported injuries or major damage, but it serves as a reminder that no system is perfect, especially when operating under the immense pressure of real-world combat conditions. Here we have another documented case of an Israeli missile malfunction shortly after launch. And here we have a failed missile launch that was captured from two different angles. Here too, the damage caused by the missile that fell back to the ground appears to be minimal or even non-existent. All in all, this war, which, in my opinion, can already rightfully be called a war, has something Orwellian about it, particularly in the way it is being conducted, primarily through missiles and other long-range weapons, across multiple countries and over vast distances. Reality even goes a step further. The public is often fed highly curated narratives, shaped not only by state media, but increasingly by algorithms. Here, a Jordanian helicopter intercepts yet another Iranian drone on its way to Israel. Do you think Trump will join Netanyahu in this war against Iran to deliver the final blow to the regime with the help of the powerful US military, or will there be another deal? One thing is certain for sure, the likelihood that the United States could already be actively involved in the conflict as you're watching this is higher than ever before.